Hey guys, today I'd like to share with you my overall perspective with the recent announcement with a Bitcoin mining company, Mara, news regarding a 700 million convertible note to buy Bitcoin and to cut down costs. In fact, the overall market with traders and investors began to react with this news, and that resulted in the company dropping to about 14% in its share price. In fact, in the pre-market, it was down sub 20s, down by about less than 10%. And with the market opening, we saw that sudden drop, and it was up until the price of Bitcoin started climbing back up. Within that hour of trading, we saw that the price of Mara began to shoot back up, hovering just to a loss of like 2%. And it was up until the market started reacting to the change in the Bitcoin price, dropping from like $92,000 down to about 89,000. That's when the money market, the makers, began to price this down. In fact, Mara ended the day 14%. I'll go into more of the details on why this is the case, what's my price target. Now, as we look forward with this news, is this looking like a buy, a hold, a sell? What to do with this information? Now, anytime when you do make an investment, please always make sure to do your research and take my information as guidance as you look forward through your investments. Let's get started. So, as you can see here, Mara ended the day at $18.10. We're looking to see whether Mara will start trending up in the after hours. It's up by about 1%. Just with the last week, we saw that the price just went down. Overall, the high point here back in November of 12th, it reached a high point of $25 and it's just been bleeding out. The relative strength index has been slowing down. Most of you are wondering, are we now at the support level? Which I do believe we are at the comfortable $17 support level. We may start seeing some headway moving forward as we look into the markets. Just with the market sentiment, with Bitcoin reaching all-time highs, I know a lot of investors are shooken up with this here, but what does that mean? Does this mean that Mara has the potential? We know that in the Bitcoin mining space, we have a stomach for dealing with risk. Things fluctuate a lot. There's lots of volatility. However, we have to just look at the details in that Mara is the top leading mining company when it comes to not only the number of Bitcoins that they hold on to their balance sheet, they have close to about 30,000 Bitcoins. You factor that 90,000 times 28,000, that will just give you the overall amount of liquidity that Mara has with just Bitcoin holdings alone, not including liquid cash. Now, with this whole news of the 700 million convertible note, while there is concern about potential ongoing dilution, we'll look at the details with just the dilution data, but we have to look at it through the lens of what are they going to be doing with this money. Now, the good news is that dilution doesn't really kick in until 2029 onward. However, that doesn't mean that dilution is already happening. In fact, we've seen dilution kick in with companies like Mara and other top companies out there. So it's not uncommon for that to happen. But most of you are wondering, what is the price range moving forward? Some folks are saying that, oh, it can go down below $15. I don't think that it'll get down to that support level because I do think that people will start just hedging in, getting in at the low point. I do think as we start seeing an upward trajectory, I can see Mara getting back into the $22 range come December timeframe at the minimum. We can easily see this bounce back up. All it takes is just market sentiment. And the Bitcoin mining companies have been lagging behind all the other Bitcoin plays like Coinbase and MicroStrategy. High points here of the year, we see this hovering above $30. Back in February, above $30 when Bitcoin was around like the low 70,000 threshold. Back in July, we see here around the 26 range, and just recently reaching the $25 threshold. It's reached that high point, getting above 25 four times within the last year. There's no reason for it not to hit again. I definitely do think that it's opportunity to continue to buy in the dips. Um, we can't time the market, but we take advantage of that, and that's how we win in this market. But let's just dive deep to see why people are reacting to this information. What does this mean? So the overall intent here is with this whole 700 million private convertible note offering, it's really to cut down on their debt. When you compare Marathon to other companies like Riot platforms, when you look at their balance sheet, we'll look at the information in this video here, but you'll see that there's actual debt that Marathon Digital hasn't really resolved yet, and it's one of the biggest concerns that any company would have, just cutting down debt because no one wants debt. You have to factor in interest rates with all the leases that you have. We'll go through the numbers, but ultimately, what Marathon is trying to do is cut down the costs and to be able to capitalize on building on its Bitcoin reserve, not only factoring in that they mine more than like 700 Bitcoins per month, which is the leading company in terms of its high throughput production with exahash. So that's that. I do understand that folks are concerned in that there's potential dilution. And we see when we compare 2020 outstanding shares here, 8 million, 8.45 million shares. We look from like 2023, there was about 145 million outstanding shares, and now it's gone beyond that. Now that we're getting close to ending Q4, it's currently at 321 million shares. So what does that mean? Owning a share of Mara back in 2020 would not be the same as owning a share of Mara at current state because it's diluted to the amount where it doesn't have that high value because you have more shares. So there's more piece to the pie that's being provided to the overall market, whoever owns Mara, whether it's the company that owns Mara, investors, or retail investors like us. So that's one of the concerns that worries people with this whole 700 million convertible note. However, when there's fear out in the market, that's when you capitalize. And I think that, yes, while we do consider dilution being one of the biggest factors, I see this happening across small caps, large cap companies. It's quite common. And when the Bitcoin sector runs, I believe Mara will start taking off as well. Now, let's look at the financial report here. So we're looking at the recent financial filing, and this is posted on Mara's website. Just looking at the actual liabilities and assets, as you can see here, September 30th, 2024, we see the assets, total lease liabilities. So we know that with the number of employees at Mara, it's around mid 60 employees. So there's going to be debt built up, right? You don't have like a workforce to resolve issues. You have leasing that's taking place here. When you have leasing within the company, you're going to have to pay interest. So you can see here that the leasing, the liabilities, the risk factors, it's grown significantly from December 2023 up through current state, September 2024. So that will give you some more color as to why they're trying to get this 700 million convertible note, whether it's going to be cash up front or more available shares outstanding, which would result in dilution, but it's to pay off debt up front, buy more Bitcoin, and to improve their balance sheet to have more assets versus having liability risk here. So you see lease costs with total rent expense going up over the years here. That's one thing to also look at. Finance lease, operating lease, you can see that it's grown from the 2023 year here. Back in 2023, you don't see any financing lease. So you can see what they're trying to tackle here, just removing the debt with the interest that they have to pay through leasing. Operating leases, you see this is what's expected to come. So that will hopefully offset all of the risk involved. Just looking at total cash equivalents here, 176 compared to 357. So Riot needs money in terms of liquid cash. They're holding on to their Bitcoins that are mined, but that doesn't mean that they can operate their company if they don't sell the Bitcoin. I mean, there's going to be pros and cons to holding on to your Bitcoin. One is that Bitcoin price will continue to go up, but how do they continue to operate their business? Which is why they're capitalizing on this 700 million convertible note. So there's value in this strategy, right? It's just from a short-term perspective, it doesn't look good, and that just scares investors. Here, you can see the amount of Bitcoin. It's grown, right? Compared to last year, September, 13,000, now 26,000. Good news is that they're not selling anything. And that's the fair value per coin at the time, September. But now it's gone up by about 35%. I mean, their whole approach is to hold on dear life with the amount of Bitcoins and be the second competitor right behind MicroStrategy, MSTR. So what Marathon announced today is similar to the strategy that MicroStrategy announced. So it's nothing new there, and they believe in the price of Bitcoin going up in the future. So we're looking at just overall revenues here from 2024 through 2023. Net loss has increased here overall. Obviously, we know revenues increased from 2024 through 2023. That explains the increase in the exahash, but overall, operating loss, net loss here, we see it increasing. So overall, I think the company, they're trying to cut down administrative expenses, pay all of that off, cut down on the liabilities with leasing, rental leases, and being able to resolve all of the pain points on their balance sheet. So that's basically the takeaway that I see here with cost of revenue due to deployment of mining rigs, third-party hosting services, higher costs due to the growth in hash rate. But to me, I think that in Q4, a lot of this is going to be offset with the price of Bitcoin going much higher, especially with the law of economics, just with supply and demand. So most of you are wondering, should I be holding on to Mara? Like, what's going to happen with the share price? I do think that while we see a reduction, a plummet in the price of Mara, that doesn't mean that Mara is going to be at the basement low. I think that with their strategy, having the largest number of Bitcoins as a Bitcoin mining company, with their strategy to now cut costs with their debt and have a similar balance sheet similar to that of like Riot. It's positioned for long-term success, and Bitcoin mining sector hasn't had their maturity, the rise in the price, but of course we have to factor in other variables such as dilution, which is understandable. But from a share price point of view, I could easily see Mara breaking back into the above 20 threshold in the coming weeks, and we can see this 3x from here as we head into the December Q1 timeframe of 2025. So I would not be surprised that this starts running up from here on out. So that's my take on Mara. If you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate you hitting the like and subscribing for more related content. Thanks, guys.